Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're glad that you're joining us this afternoon. We are going to give it another minute or so for a few more of the attendees to join. So thank you. We'll be starting in a few minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to More Than Just Reading, making storytime fun in the pre-K classroom. My name is Amy Hamley, and I have the pleasure today of co-facilitating with my co-manager, Miss Tiffany Bernard. Tiffany, would you like to welcome everyone?
Hello, everyone. Welcome, and we hope you enjoy the presentation.
Oh, hello. I better be in these books somewhere. Do you recognize this famous pigeon? Maybe we'll see him later on in the presentation. Before the fun begins, let's talk about a little business. So as you know, those of you who have been attending our webinars consistently, thank you as always for the support. Our trainings are for in-service hours only. You should receive your certificate emailed within the next 24 hours, and it will be emailed to the email address that you used for registering for this event. In order to be marked as attended, you do have to be logged in to webinar either on your computer or in the app on any of your electronic devices, including your phone. If you call into the webinar, you will be able to listen. However, you will not be marked as attended in the report that we run at the end to provide the certificates. So if you can't see our screen, we unfortunately cannot see you. When you registered for this training, there was a pre-test with I believe it's 3 questions. Those same questions will be at the end of the presentation along with the training survey. So please, at the end of the presentation, it will automatically launch, and we encourage you to complete all the information as we do read and listen to all of your feedback and try to inform any future trainings around what you would like to see. And again, in GoToWebinar, all is controlled with the panel. So where the orange rectangle is with the little white arrow, sometimes it's on your left, sometimes it's on your right. If you click on that, it will open up a square panel. And the most important features are the questions box, which you can click on the arrow that says questions, and there you can enter either a question or a comment. Anytime during the presentation, Tiffany and I will try to respond throughout the presentation, and if there is something that we were unable to respond, we will try to get back to you after the webinar. Also at the end, you will get our contact information. If you do want something very specific, you will be able to reach out to us. The other important little triangle here is the handouts. So if you click on the handouts, you will find all of the handouts that go along with this presentation, and we will probably refer to some of these throughout the presentation. You do have to download them one at a time. And if for whatever reason you are unable to download the handouts, again, please reach out to us and we will be happy to send them to you. Our agenda for today is number one, what is literacy and language development? What is story time? How can you make story time interactive? What are the connections to class? And how do you link story time to other activities? We have 3 learning objectives today. The first is to learn how to introduce literacy concepts in a fun and exciting way. We also will learn how to gauge the students' interest levels and adapt the books as needed. And finally, we will learn how to link concepts learned across different activities.
Thank you, Amy. So now we are going to read a story and follow along. The book is Can You Make a Scary Face? So what kind of face would you make if a tickly green bug were sitting on your nose? Or if it were inside your shirt? Could you make a scary face to frighten it away? Or even better, stand up and do the chicken dance? Yes? Then we better get to it. Ready? Well then, here we go. So you're not able to see me, but I'm going to be following along to all these movements. So I hope you all will too. And Amy, I know you're going to be following along with me as well.
Yes, ma'am, of course.
Okay, everyone, so here we go. Hey, you, stand up. Yes, I'm talking to you. No, I changed my mind. Sit down. No, I changed my mind again. Stand up. Okay, are you ready? Let's pretend. Pretend you have a tiny bug on your nose. Wiggle it off. I hope you all are wiggling your noses, trying to get the bug off. It tickles? Wiggle your nose and laugh. Whoops, the tiny tickly bug flew into your mouth. Blow it out. Come on, blow harder. Wait, the tiny tickly bug is out of your mouth, but now it's in your shirt? The only way to get it out is to, yes, you are reading correctly, do the chicken dance. So I'm flapping my arms and moving my legs. I hope you are too. Dance faster. So that means you should be moving your arms and your legs faster. The tiny tickly bug is stuck in your shirt. Don't worry, pretend there's a giant hungry frog coming to eat that tiny tickly bug stuck in your shirt. Ribbit. Uh-oh. There really is a giant hungry frog. Scare him away. Help, make a scary face now. So I hope you all are making your own scary faces. Yikes, not that scary. Wait up, giant hungry frog. I'm still scared. So as you can see, that's a really fun, it's a really interactive book that you can engage your students with. They'll enjoy making those faces. They'll enjoy getting up, moving around, sitting up, standing up, sitting back down, doing the chicken dance. So it's a way to really get the students up, moving, laughing, and engaged with the story.
So let's look at what ways, when we share books with young children, we can support emerging literacy and language development. So when you share books with young children, you support emerging literacy as you help children learn that pictures and words are symbols that can be interpreted, and familiarize children with conventions of print, which is print awareness. And we, always promote that a print-rich environment is definitely very important in a preschool classroom for children to develop those literacy and language skills that we need them to have going to kindergarten. We want to expose children to letter shapes, letter names, letter sounds, and new words, which in turn increases vocabulary. We know how important it is for children to develop a large vocabulary, especially if we're working with children who have had limited exposure to a rich vocabulary. We want to build literacy and language skills in ways that are developmentally appropriate and fun. We want to have fun. We just saw how much fun that book that Tiffany read to us was, and it made us get up and do all of those actions as the character was doing them. Support the development of comprehension skills by allowing children to describe things and recount events, telling and retelling the stories. That's how we know that they are understanding. We want to encourage children to hear and play with smaller units of sound in words, which is phonological awareness. Again, another important skill that children need to start their formal schooling. Here's a quote that we wanted to share. Children who acquire a substantial vocabulary are often better able to think deeply, express themselves clearly, and learn things more quickly. And this is by Susan Newman. And I'm sure that this is one of the resources that we have at the end of the presentation, but anything Susan Newman has written, there's a lot of good stuff that you should look at involving vocabulary in the preschool classroom and language development. She's a guru. Another wonderful quote is, when comprehension and vocabulary strategies are taught in conjunction with reading high quality books, children make meaningful connections to the global messages of emotions. And this is from Lori Harper. We will see throughout the presentation how a lot of the stories that are most popular and that we will be suggesting and offering to you have those emotional messages behind them that help children process their own feelings. So what is a story time? Storytime is an interactive group activity used to inspire imagination, foster emerging literacy skills, and plant the seeds for a young child's lifelong interest in reading and books. Through Storytime, you help children build the vocabulary, develop listening skills, increase their attention span, promote oral communication, and teach new concepts and skills. So there's so many things that a rich story time will offer children as far as their development in so many different areas, getting them ready for school. So developing language and literacy through interactive story time invites children to talk about the story so that they themselves and others hear what they understand. So again, we already mentioned comprehension. This is rather than drilling children and asking them specific questions, having them retell a story or talk about parts of the story, you will be able to know if their comprehension is there. As conversations take place, the adult reader introduces and models appropriate speech, and children take on the role of both listener and speaker. In this way, children begin to formulate ideas as questions, statements, and directives. So you are their role model in how to read. You serve as the example, and the way that you read them, the stories, is how they will better interpret the message behind it and the meaning behind it.
So now let's talk about some questions to ask yourself when choosing books for read-alouds. So does the story sound good to the ear when read aloud? So humorous and predictable books have been particularly successful. Think about Chicka Chicka Boom Boom, those Pete the Cat books that I absolutely love. There's Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus. We saw the pigeon earlier. He was saying that he better be somewhere in this presentation, which he is. And Brown Bear, What Do You See? You also want to choose books that the children are going to find relevant to their lives and culture. So ask yourself that, will the children find these books relative? So you have to choose stories that respond to children's interests and experiences. Children need to be exposed to a wide range of stories and books. They need to really see themselves as well as other people, cultures, and issues in the books we read to them. They need to see how the books have these characters that handle the same fears and interests and concerns that they themselves experience. So really think about selecting a wide range of culturally diverse books that are going to help all children find and make connections to their own life experiences and other stories that they've heard as well. Will the book spark conversation? So you want to choose a variety of books that have animals, people, wordless, which we're going to explore later, pictureless, which we're also going to talk about, and both fiction, which is make-believe, and nonfiction books. You also want to choose sophisticated picture books in which the listeners have to infer the characters' motivations and thoughts and connect them to action. So those cause and effects books. And the last question you want to ask yourself is, will children want to hear the story again? You know how you feel when you read books. You want to choose books that you want to hear again. So you're going to choose books with vivid pictures, a strong storyline, engaging characters, that repetitive language that children really love, and rhyming phrases are wonderful too. And plan to choose books that relate to the classroom theme. When children have the opportunity to repeat lines that they can anticipate, those predictors in the book, they feel like they are reading before they are actually reading those books. So some tips for successful read-alouds: you want to preview. So preview the book before you read it aloud with the class so you can predict likely questions or reactions. You want to practice reading the book first so you can decide where to pause, where to emphasize certain words, and where to prompt questions from them, predictions, or their reactions. You want to watch your audience, watch the children's expressions and body language, and be aware of signs that they might be bored or confused. At that point, you might have to switch up some things. And you want to remember that sitting and listening to stories may be a new experience for some children. There are going to be some children that may not be used to being read to, and they're going to need to develop that interest and skill. So you're going to really have to have a little patience with them and, provide some other resources and maybe some fidgets to really help them sit and attend to that story. So ways to make story time interactive. You want to introduce the book to the group. You want to point out the pictures on the cover, the title, the author, and the illustrator. You want to invite children to predict what the book is about. You're going to talk about how the book might connect to their own experience or to other books they've heard of or read. You can also give a brief explanation about why you chose to read the book. For example, you could say, this is the story of a boy who goes on a trip. I chose it because you just came back from a trip. Or in the case of one of my favorite books, The Red Ripe Strawberry and the Big Hungry Bear, this is a story about a mouse who really wants to eat a red ripe strawberry. I have read this book many times. I wonder what you will think about it. Before reading, you want to ask children where on the page you should start. And as you read, move your finger from left to right under those words to really work on those pre-reading skills. While reading, you want to talk about specific letters. So for example, you can point to the letter C, like the teacher is doing in the picture there. And you can say, Callie the cat is looking for a place to live. Here's the letter C. Here's another C. You can also connect the letter to a name of a child in the class. Oh, look, Colin starts with a C too. Last, you want to build in time for the children to respond. You want to allow time for children to look at the pictures as you read, make comments, and ask questions about the story. But don't read too fast. You want to vary your pace so you can pause for emphasis. You want to allow time for children to think about what's happening, to process it, and to think about what might come next in the story. So here are some ways you can make storytime interactive as well. So you want to encourage predictions to get reactions from the group. You want to ask children what they think will happen next. Help them confirm or change the predictions they made as the story progresses. You want to listen to and acknowledge all of their ideas and interpretations, not just the correct ones. So instead of accepting or rejecting comments or ideas as right or wrong, you can use comments such as, well, that's an interesting idea. How did you think of that? To really try to understand their thought process and why they thought about, that making that prediction. You want to also save time at the end of the story to ask open-ended questions that can't be answered with a yes or no response. For instance, you can ask a child what he or she liked or disliked about the book and why. And you might ask what he or she thought about the characters or how the problem in the story was solved. You can really find out if the book made them think of any personal experiences or other books that they've heard. You also want to point out parts of the story that you noticed or particularly liked. You can show the children phrases or parts of the text that made you feel or visualize something, and you can ask them if there were any other parts of the book that they noticed as well. So one fun thing that you can do is get in character, just like you see in the picture with him dressed as Old MacDonald. You can wear a costume, clothing, or accessories related to the story. Using dress-up clothes can really bring the story to life. You can read with expression, just like I was doing in that first story that I read. You can let your voice reflect the tone of the story or personalities of the characters. By using different voices, humors, and a variety of facial expressions, you can make that story come alive for children and really keep them engaged in that story time. Your voice you can think of as the typography of the book. So you can also use puppets or props like you see the teacher using in the picture to highlight your story. Children can take turns using props during the story, and it can really help extend their language and provide them with an opportunity to learn new vocabulary, which is so important. But I don't want you, both Amy and I don't want you to think that you always have to have props when you read a story. You don't have to have props or activities for every book you read. Your voice alone can captivate your audience. That's why you have to be as animated and enthusiastic as possible to really keep them engaged. So you can also publish class stories. You can create books together as a group or write down the stories that your students tell you. And writing together is going to help children feel like their stories are worthwhile. And it really coaches them to think about those components of storytelling, such as the concept of beginning, middle, and end of those stories. you're showing them that written words have meaning to people. You can think of a topic together and have it relate to the current theme in your classroom, or it could be about changes your student would like to see made in their favorite stories. So for example, in the case of Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus, you can have an alternate ending. What if that pigeon actually got a chance to drive that bus? What would happen then? You can read your book with your students and ask open-ended questions about the people, the places, and those stories on the pages. You can offer a variety of writing utensils like crayons, markers, colored pencils, so they can really illustrate those stories. You can provide simple props so you can act out those stories together. And you can even email a scanned copy of those stories to their families so they can read the story at home together.
One of our favorite books that we love to offer to attendees at this particular webinar is one called Duck Rabbit. And this is one of the books that stretches young children's thinking. It's written by Amy Krauss Rosenthal and Tom Lichtenheld. And this is a funny book with two unseen characters who are disagreeing about what kind of animal stands before them. Is it a duck with a bill, a rabbit with tall ears? The wonderful thing is that the answer depends on how you look at things. This clever book reveals that sometimes there really is more than one right answer. Hey, look, a duck. That's not a duck. Are you kidding me? It's totally a duck. It's for sure a rabbit. See, there's his bill. What are you talking about? Those are ears, silly. It's a duck, and he's about to eat a piece of bread. It's a rabbit, and he's about to eat a carrot. Wait, listen. Did you hear that? I heard duck sounds. Quack, 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 quack. That's funny. I distinctly heard rabbit sounds. Now the duck is wading through the swamp. No, the rabbit is hiding in the grass. There, see? It's flying. Flying? It's hopping. Look, the duck is so hot, he's getting a drink. No, the rabbit's so hot, he's cooling off his ears. And if you look at the left side, here is a way that you can use Duck Rabbit, which we will talk about later after the book. Here, look at the duck through my binoculars. Sorry, still a rabbit. Here, ducky, ducky. Here, you cute little rabbit. Oh, great. You scared him away. I didn't scare him away. You scared him away. You know, maybe you were right. Maybe it was a rabbit. Thing is, now I'm actually thinking it was a duck. Well, anyway, now what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? Hey, look, an anteater. That's no anteater. That's a brachiosaurus. So here we have ways that you can have an interactive story time using the book Duck Rabbit. One of the things that you can do is voting. A voting activity can be done in a few different ways, and here we're offering a couple. You can just draw a poster with duck and rabbit in two different columns and give the children stickies, and they can put their name on the stickies and then decide what they see. Did they see a duck or did they see a rabbit? Another option is to give the children little stickers and do the same, having those who believe it's a duck put their sticker on duck side and also on rabbit side for those who see rabbit. Again, it's a way for them to be able to express what they see. There's never a right or wrong answer. And then you can use it to count. So it becomes a math activity as well. And on the right-hand side, we also have a printout that you can use to graph how many chose duck and how many chose rabbit. And then it actually prompts you to go ahead and ask which one do the children see most, which do they see least. So you're introducing that math vocabulary of less and more. They can see how many people voted and what they chose more of than the other. So comparison, contrasting as well. In the story, we saw that there were these little figures cut out with popsicle sticks, and that's another way to make the story interactive is by letting the children be who they believe it to be, whether it's duck or rabbit. And we can also, using Tiffany's suggestion of class books, this would be a way to create your own duck rabbit class book activities by printing and cutting out the images of duck rabbit and some of the different items that you saw in the book, or different foods that they may eat, since they were talking about food in the book or what they were eating, and put these images on a PowerPoint slide presentation and have the students share why they think it is a duck or a rabbit. And now, just to be silly, we're going to have a little poll to see what you think. Is it a duck or a rabbit? Depends on how you look at it, right, Tiffany?
It absolutely depends on how you look at it. So Amy, what do you think? Do you think it's a duck or do you think it's a rabbit?
Well, I know what it is because, I just know what it is. So
How do you know what it is?
I'm not going to influence anybody. I'm gonna wait till the votes are in.
Okay, well, I think I know what it is too. So I guess we'll wait and see what you all think. So I am going to launch the poll right now. And if for any reason you are not able to vote using the poll, please put your guess of whether you think it's a duck or a rabbit in the questions box. Okay, so we are at 25% voted so far.
Tiffany, in the questions box, we're even getting little images of which animal it is or could be.
Oh, yes, I see. Okay, we are at 45% voted. We'll give it another minute or so that you guys can vote some more. And we do see some votes in the questions box as well. Okay, we are at 60%. We are at 70%. So now I'll give it to 75 and then I'll close the poll and share those results with you. Okay, I'm going to close the poll and share those results now.
Ha.
Well, it looks like,
Everybody's right, Tiffany. Everybody's correct.
well, it looks like 67% of you thought it was a rabbit. 33% of you, like me, think it's a duck. Obviously, Amy thinks it's a rabbit because she's laughing. But we all know, 33% of us know that it is a duck. But it's all depends on how you look at it. And it's all going to depend on how your students look at it as well. So we wanted to share a quote with you by our beloved Dr. Seuss. You can find magic wherever you look. Sit back and relax. All you need is a book. And once you really introduce your children to the concept of looking at books, looking at the pictures, taking those picture walks, you're really going to foster a love of reading for years to come. So another book that we'd like to share with you is There Was an Old Lady Who Swallowed Some Books by Lucille Calandro and Jarrett D. Lee. So I'm sure all of you have met this old lady before. She swallowed everything by now. In this story, she's swallowing, obviously, things related to school. So she's ready for school. She's swallowing items to make the very best of her first day back to school, just in time for the bus. This twist on the classic song has rhyming text and funny illustrations that really appeal to young children. So what can you do to help make the story interactive? So there are different platforms like Pinterest and you can Google that have pictures of all of those characters and all of those things that happened and items in the book. So you can print those out, for example, like the book, the pen, the folder, the ruler, the chalk, and the children can put those picture items on a felt board in sequential order. So what happened first, what happened second, what happened third, etc., to help retell the story. You can also have the children help the old lady swallow items from the book. So here I printed out the old lady's face and then just use an old wipes container and just cut out a hole in it, and then that enables the children to be able to put all of those items in the old lady's mouth. Another book we'd like to share with you is called It Looked Like Spilt Milk by Charles G. Shaw. So this is an engaging story that inspires creativity and imagination in children. So a white shape is silhouetted against a blue background that changes on each page. Is it a rabbit, a bird, or is it just spilt milk? Children are kept guessing until the surprise ending, and they're encouraged to create similar games of their own. So It Looked Like Spilt Milk is really a great book to read to children. This is a classic book that has a pattern which children can easily recognize. Sometimes it looked like a, but it wasn't a. This pattern is repeated throughout the book as the pictures change from one to the next. So you can encourage your children to repeat the phrase with you and to add to what the picture is. And we do have in the handouts some spilt milk extension activities, as well as those in the last picture that you see to the right, all of those silhouetted shapes. We do have cutouts of those that you can print, cut out, and laminate to use as well. So what can you do to help make the story interactive? You can have a mystery box. This one is store-bought, but you can create your own. And you can put items from the book inside the box and have the children put their hands inside the box and feel what it is and pull it out and tell you what it is. You can do a guess how many clouds are in the jar. Obviously, those cotton balls we use are clouds. And you can work on an estimation math activity and have them make that guess of how many cotton balls are in the jar or clouds are in the jar. And of course, you can print out those silhouetted pictures that are included in the handouts, and you can give them to the children and they can put them up as the story progresses on a felt board. So here's the pigeon. So this story that we'd like to share with you is actually one of the newer pigeon books. It's The Pigeon Has to Go to School by Mo Williams. And Mo Williams really has a lot of wonderful interactive books that really engage children. So the pigeon has just learned that he has to start attending school. Surely he doesn't have to do that. After all, he already knows everything. Will there be math? There are too many letters, and pigeon is not a morning bird at all. Will anything be able to change his mind? Children will enjoy hearing about the different reasons why pigeon shouldn't go to school, and at the same time, really recognize that pigeon is being unreasonable. And we just wanted to include some pictures because we know this is a new book, some pictures in the book. So why does the alphabet have so many letters? What about lunch? Reading can be really hard with one big eye. And there's, what's up with those heavy backpacks? What will the other birds think of me? So this is really a fun and engaging book, just like all of the pigeon books are. And it's something that your children will really enjoy hearing. And you'll enjoy reading as well. Another book that we'd like to share is called Tickle Monster by Edward Mansue. So this engaging picture book prompts young children to face their fear of monsters and take charge of the situation. The reader is prompted to tickle various parts of a monster, deconstructing the creature and repurposing his parts into a far less threatening scene. His horns become the moon, his legs and arms become trees, his nose becomes a car. Slowly but surely, the monster shapes build a peaceful nighttime landscape. And then as you can see in the pictures, you can make the monster's parts out of felt, and then you can have the children build the monster. And then you can also have that nighttime scene created as well, where they can put together the trees and the house and the car and the moon and talk about all of the shapes that were used. And that is really a way to engage the children. Another book that we didn't include, but it is in the list of books that we've included in the handouts, is all of the Pete the Cat books. And you can really make Pete the Cat books interactive as well, like Pete the Cat, I Love My White Shoes. You can do the same thing with the story retelling and have cutouts of him and all of those different things that he stepped in and all of the colors that his shoes changed to. So that's one way that you can also work on retelling the story and making it interactive for your children.
Another great interactive book is I'm Not Just a Scribble by Diane Alber. And in this story, Scribble never thought he was different until he met his first drawing. He was left out because he didn't look like everyone else. So Scribble teaches that the other drawings how to accept each other for who they are, which allows them to create wonderful art together. This book encourages parents and teachers to be proud of their children's artwork, no matter what it looks like. So here we have a book with a beautiful message in a way that children can relate to. And we actually have a short YouTube version of the book to share with you today. So as you can see, Scribble teaches the other drawings that they all don't have to be exactly the same, that they can be different, but that all together they make beautiful artwork. And what a powerful and wonderful message for children to receive in this way with this book. A way to make this an interactive story time is after reading the book, the children can create their own scribble. And we have included here some scribble stickers that come with the book. So if you do purchase the book, it may come with the stickers like the one that Tiffany has. But if not, those are things that you can, print out, or just let the children create their own version of Scribble, or you can maybe have them glue googly eyes and maybe like a little piece of pink felt for the tongue. But they can enjoy themselves creating what they feel would be a beautiful Scribble, their version of Scribble. Another set of books that we'd like to, or genre of books that we'd like to discuss is nonfiction books. So we know that children love fiction books, books about fantasy, but it's also good to have them exposed to nonfiction books. So that doesn't mean that they have to be boring. You can still make nonfiction story time fun and interactive. So how do we do that? Wondering out loud as you're reading. I wonder what will happen if. I wonder what's going to be on the next page. As you're reading, you want to ask those types of open-ended questions. You want to talk afterwards about the facts that you find interesting and ask the children what they find interesting about those facts. And another important thing, and I think Tiffany may have mentioned this in one of the past slides, but don't be afraid to jump around the book. You can read pages that are especially interesting to the children. You don't have to read a non-book straight through. It's fine if that maybe you want to do that the first time, but you know, always go for what's going to be interesting to them, or the opposite. Don't read the book the first time straight through. Jump around to the areas that the children will find interesting so that there's that buy-in, and then maybe later read it straight through. You know your children best. Another interactive nonfiction book, or actually the first one that we'd like to offer to you, is the Bug Book. So the Bug Book is by Sue Flace, and it's a rhyming story list of all the bugs that you can imagine. So there's crate bugs and climb bugs and sticky slime bugs, and children love bugs. They discover the wide world of this book and can join in the search for all the bugs that they can find. Another great interactive nonfiction book is First the Egg. This is by Laura Vaccaro Seeger, and it's that age-old question, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And throughout the book, the author is exploring the stages of development of the egg. So this is a great way to introduce children to nature and how a chicken develops from an egg. So the story grows in a memorable and unique way that invites children to recreate the transformations and think about what comes first. So there you can extend or compare to other firsts, such as from a seed to a flower, from a caterpillar to a butterfly, from a tadpole to a frog, from a word to a story, from paint to a picture. And all of this will help to make connections for children. Another type of book that we'd like to offer is pictureless books. And we have one here that is called The Book with No Pictures by BJ Novak, who is actually an actor. And you would think, why would children want to read a book that has no pictures? So we actually have a YouTube reading from the author that we'd like to share with you so that you can see that everything written on the page has to be said by the person reading it aloud, even if the words are a preposterous song or just a list of astonishingly goofy sounds. So it's clever, it's irreverent, and it's super silly, which children love, being silly and goofy. And let's see what happens with a book with no pictures. So as you can see, even a book with no pictures can be super interactive, fun, and engage students to want to continue reading the book, even if they're asked, can I stop? Tiffany, would you like to add anything about the book with no pictures?
Yes, the book with no pictures is such a wonderful book. You can really see how they're engaged, and it just goes to show you that you don't need necessarily pictures to make a book engaging. You saw how they loved the book, they were laughing. So I know that that's something that if you had that book, your students would all love and enjoy engaging in that book with you.
And it kind of goes back, Tiffany, to what you said earlier in the presentation regarding the props, that we don't always need to have props because your voice is your best prop. And how you use your voice and modulate your tones and change up the way that your facial expressions are is a prop in and of itself.
Absolutely, Amy. And when you think about it, reading a book with no pictures, you're going to want to be as animated as possible. You're going to want to have your face be as, expressive as possible so that your students really are going to get pulled into that story with you. So now that we've talked about pictureless books, we're going to now focus on wordless picture books. So wordless picture books are told entirely through their illustrations. They're books without words, or they might have just a few words. Sharing wordless books also reinforces the idea that the story and the pictures are frequently connected in many books that we read. Children often really enjoy these stories because they can explore the pictures and they can create their own story in their own words, because there are no right or wrong ways to read a wordless book. So you can go through a picture walk with the book to introduce it to them first, and then you can have them come up with their own story based on what those illustrations are and what those characters are doing in the pictures. And you can also finish the wordless book by asking a few simple questions. What pictures helped you tell the story? What was your favorite part of the story? Have you had an experience like the one in your story? So now here is a wordless book that we would like to share with you. It's called Chalk by Bill Thompson. So in Chalk, a rainy day, 3 children in a park, a dinosaur spring rider, a bag of chalk. The kids begin to draw, and then what happens? Magic. The children draw the sun, they draw butterflies, and a dinosaur that comes to life before their very eyes. So what is a writing with chalk extension activity that you can do? Well, you can take chalk to the playground. You can talk about different things your students can draw with the chalk and ask them open-ended questions about their drawings and imagine what would happen if they came to life. So just like in the picture, you see 2 of my former students drawing with chalk on the playground, and you can see their drawings and ask them those questions about what they made and get them to tell you a story about, those characters that they're drawing. And this really makes them engaged in that storytelling process because they're the authors and they're the illustrators of their own story.
We wanted to share with you some information regarding the class tool and how it connects to a great interactive story time and to extending and connecting story times. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, the class is actually called the Classroom Assessment Scoring System, and it is a tool that is used for observing and assessing the quality of interactions between teachers and children in their classroom. So if you are a school readiness provider, you are actually required to participate in what is called the School Readiness Program Assessment, and the tool that is used is the class tool. So it is very important to know about the class tool, and we're not going to really get into it too much, but we did want to share with you some slides where we are going to demonstrate how the story time can tie to class. So class measures the emotional, organizational, and instructional supports provided by teachers that have been found to contribute to children's social development and academic achievement. So this is research-based, and it's a valid and reliable tool. And it is broken down into 3 domains: emotional support, classroom organization, instructional support. And each of those domains is broken down further into dimensions. In emotional support, we have positive climate, negative climate, teacher sensitivity, and regard for student perspectives. And classroom organization has behavior management, productivity, instructional learning formats. And in the instructional support, we have concept development, quality of feedback, and language modeling. All of these are also broken down into behavior markers and indicators, but again, we're not going to get further deep into class. We're just going to give you a few areas where it touches upon what we're trying to convey with story time. If you would like more information on the class tool, we do have subscriptions to the My Teachstone platform, which is a product of the same authors of the class tool. That's a company called Teachstone, and those are for free, and it's a wonderful resource. Again, our contact information will be provided at the end of the presentation, and we will ensure that one of our My Teachstone ambassadors gets back to you with a subscription. We will also be hosting another webinar next week. It is going to be called What to Expect When Expecting a Class Observation. This will be on Tuesday, October 20th from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m., just like all of our webinars have been thus far. And it will be facilitated by our actually Senior Director of Quality and Education, Allison Match. Okay, so we want to create connections to the real world using stories. So one of the items in class is connecting to the real world. And stories are a great way for you to have an opportunity to help children connect concepts from the books that you read to them to their own lives. It's a way for children's learning to come alive, and you can plan questions that are going to encourage the children to connect these concepts from the story to their world. Because again, we're not telling children what they should know. We're probing them and providing and provoking with our questions so that they come up with the answers and they can make those connections for themselves, which is how they're going to be ready to go on to kindergarten. Builds that critical thinking. So some ways of encouraging children to make those connections. We have some questions that we'd like to offer you. How would you feel if this happened to you? Has anything like this ever happened in your life? What did you do? If this happens in school, what would you do about it? How do you think the character feels? Tell me about a time you felt that way. Have you ever been to a place like this? What was it like? So these are just some examples of great questions to ask to encourage children in making those connections to the real world and to their own lives. Again, which are tied to high quality interactions as per the class. Another way is language modeling during story time. So to facilitate language during story time, teachers can pause during the story and ask children open-ended questions about the details of the story or what they think might happen. So there we have some prediction. Again, children are able to answer these open-ended questions, so it's making them think, but at the same time, it's a way to model language for them, which again ties to the class tool. Take time to define new words that come up in the story with language that the children understand. So this is, again, building that vocabulary. And Tiffany is going to help us with a couple of recommendations at this time.
Thank you, Amy. So speaking of those recommendations, we are going to let you know about advanced language. So advanced language would be using those big words with your children. So we have 2 books that we'd like to share with you. Big Words for Little People by Jamie Lee Curtis. And in this story, it's introducing a variety of big words to children with words like cooperate, respect, patience, and considerate. A big, boisterous family celebrates the power of language and discovers that words are the bridge that connects us all. So just like Amy was saying, you really want to make sure that you're defining those new vocabulary words for children. So you can introduce them to those big words like that, cooperate, respect, and patience. Let them know what those words mean and use those words in your daily vocabulary with them so they get to hear that language used again and again. Another story that we'd like to share with you is Big, Bigger, Biggest by Nancy Caufelt. So in this story, how would you describe a hippopotamus? Big might be the first word that comes to mind. What about a whale? Gigantic, immense. How about enormous? With its bright pictures of animals in all shapes and sizes, this terrific read-aloud introduces young children to the language of comparisons and the different big words you can use to describe the animals in the book. So what's great about this book is that it has a lot of different words that mean the same thing. So how many different ways can you say big? You can say immense, you can say gigantic, you can say enormous. How many ways can you say small? You can say tiny, you can say minuscule. So it really shows children that there are so many different ways that they can use these big words for other words that they have. So tiny and minuscule mean the same thing. So it really introduces them to a wide range of vocabulary words. So now we have a video that we'd like to share with you that's going to show one of those areas that we mentioned before, which is concept development. It's promoting, this is a way to integrate class into book readings. So it's promoting thinking skills and a discussion of a book's classification. So as you watch this video, watch how the teacher asks an open-ended question, leads an instructional discussion, and helps children classify books.
About that. But is this an information book?
No.
Why not? Tell me why. Tell me why this is a story. Why is this a fiction story? You can tell me. Amelia, why is this a fiction story?
Because animals don't paint.
Because animals usually don't paint. You're right.
Elephants do.
They could hold it with their trunk. So if maybe we'd have an information book about that. Why else can you tell me that this is not an information book? That it is a fiction book. Why else is this a fiction book? How do you know? Theo? How else do you know that this is a fiction book?
Animals don't live in real houses.
Animals don't live in real houses. They might have shelter and protection like in caves, but they don't live in houses like this. Do they live in houses?
Yeah.
No, not like we live in houses.
But owners let their pets go inside your house.
Some owners let some pets go inside. Would you let a pig go inside your house usually?
No.
Not typically. Sometimes there are small pet pigs that people will.
Moose.
Would you think this is a moose? Would you let that go, this beast go inside your?
No.
No. Let's read.
About a guinea pig.
You could have a guinea pig that is
I
a
have
much
a guinea
smaller
pig.
pig. You do have a guinea pig. So let's read. And you know what else I noticed? These are not real photos. And remember, most of the time in our information books, Brian, there are real photos.
So as you can see in that video, the teacher was really helping bring concepts to life by applying them to the students' everyday world. When the teacher asked, well, how do we know that this is not an information book? One of the children said, well, animals don't paint. And she said, that's right, animals don't paint. But then a little girl said, well, elephants do. They can paint with their trunks. And it's actually true. Some animals do paint, like elephants painting with their trunks. So it's acknowledging that those answers that the children give you. So effective concept development strategies help children gain a deeper understanding of concepts and develop analytical thinking skills. So this teacher uses this discussion to encourage analysis and reasoning about this book's classification. Why is this a fiction story? It's one of those open-ended questions that she asked to help them gain a deeper understanding. So she also encouraged them to generate their own ideas by seeking multiple responses. Or how else do you know that this is a fiction book? She connected the discussion to the students' lives when a child says, but owners let their pets go inside their house. And she prompted them to think about what animals they would let into their own homes by asking, would you let a pig go inside your house usually? When teachers provide these types of opportunities, they are going to really help teachers gain or help their children gain a deeper understanding of concepts and develop those critical thinking skills, which are so important for children to be able to develop. So now we're going to look at integration. So integration is all about intentionally linking together concepts across the curriculum and throughout the day so that children connect ideas. And this is something that typically takes place over time. So reading to children enhances their awareness of unfamiliar areas of experience as they link concrete and abstract ideas in their lives. So teachers can demonstrate effective integration in two ways: by explicitly linking concepts and activities to one another, and by linking concepts and activities to previous learning. So it's not enough to just simply mention a connection in passing. Highly effective integration is going to require teachers to consistently make those connections for children. Understanding how and why always is going to involve integrating concepts for children. So children are going to reach new levels of understanding as a result of teachers asking questions related to or explicitly stating how two ideas are related. So we have two examples to share with you. The first is the hungry caterpillar's cocoon is kind of like he's wrapped up in a snuggly blanket, isn't it? So in that example right there, the teacher is making that connection for the student. She's letting them know that the caterpillar's cocoon, it's snuggly just like a blanket. So it's making that connection that the caterpillar is wrapped up in the cocoon, just like the child would be wrapped up in a blanket. Next example is, we read the book, It Looked Like Spilt Milk during story time and saw pictures that different clouds can make. What are some pictures we saw the clouds make when we were on the playground today? So in that example, it's integrating what they saw in the book and taking it outside to the playground to talk about what clouds, what pictures they could see in those clouds. So it's really integrating those concepts so that those children can make those connections. And we can also link concepts across activities, like It Looked Like Spilt Milk can be linked across different activities such as sensory and art time. And in this sensory activity, the children are enjoying engaging in cloud play. So they're making different pictures in the clouds, which is shaving cream. And then they made their own spilt milk pictures by mixing shaving cream and glue together, putting drops of that on a paper and pressing the paper together, opening it up and saying exactly what spilt milk pictures they made. So what picture it was. It looked like spilt milk, but it was just a cloud in the sky. And we always want to ask children what they made, whether it's a painting or a drawing, because it really allows them to express themselves and know that their activities have meaning. Another great way to link concepts across activities is with the book Not a Box by Antoinette Portis. So a box is just a box unless it's not a box. From a mountain to a rocket ship, a small rabbit shows that a box will go as far as the imagination allows. So Not a Box can be linked across a variety of activities such as art, circle time, block play, and outdoor creative play. So you can see in these pictures that the students use their imaginations to turn a cardboard box into whatever their creativity can conjure up, through drawings, through paint, through toilet paper rolls, etc. And in these pictures, the children stood on boxes and they did gross motor activities. They built towers with boxes and block play. They used the box as an easel to paint. They made a castle out of the box, and they even engaged in an obstacle course. So there are so many different wonderful things that you can do with a box. And Amy is actually going to show you an additional thing you can do with a box during an activity momentarily.
Another book that can be used to link concepts across activities is something like Vincent's Colors. So as we know, Vincent van Gogh is a world famous artist. And this book is a book of his paintings, but it also has his very own words. It's his descriptions that have been arranged as a simple rhyme to introduce children to reproductions of many of his most beloved and important works. And I'd like to shout out two of our wonderful coaches, Miss Agnes Bodie and Julio Maini, who did a wonderful webinar on the importance of art and introducing children to fine art and to famous artists, and why that is important for children. So here we have some of the activities that help to link the concepts. So we have art time, and children are recreating one of Van Gogh's most famous paintings, Starry Night. And we can see how the children are in their process, followed by an art exhibit. And a way to exhibit children's paintings is reaching out to your local libraries. A lot of libraries are always looking for things to display, and into having the children's artwork displayed. You can combine it with their pictures, such as in this picture that Tiffany's students did. And it's a wonderful event for parents to feel proud of their children's work, and for the children to be proudly displaying their artwork, just like famous artists. Another great book for linking concepts across activities is What Does the X-Ray Say? And this is a book that was written and illustrated by second graders at Longfellow Elementary in Wisconsin. And in the book, X-rays reveal some interesting sights, especially from a child's point of view. So this is a great book to share with the children, not only to link concepts across activities, but to encourage them when you would like to do your own classroom book, because this one got published. So maybe you and your students can create a classroom book and see you get it published. So some activities that can be used to link concepts in using the book, What Does the X-Ray Say? Are science and art. The students at the top are looking at actual X-rays of the body. So that can be a science activity. They're exploring the X-rays and having conversations around what it is that they're seeing. And then the bottom two pictures are students making their own hand X-rays. So they're creating art to match what they saw in the actual X-rays. And as always, we want to make sure that the children's artwork is exhibited. And here we have, the exhibit of those X-rays that they created of their hands during their art activity. Another book to link concepts across activities is Dinosaur Bones by Bob Barner. And in this story, the author shakes the dust off of dinosaur bones found in museums and reminds us that they once belonged to living, breathing creatures. And this book can be linked across several activities such as art, science, sensory, math, pretend play, and group projects. So here we see how we linked those concepts across activities. As you see the children creating their own dinosaur bones. And as Tiffany had mentioned earlier when she was describing or discussing activities to do with not just the box, here they're using boxes to create dinosaurs. So it's always great to use those recyclable, repurposing type materials that are inexpensive because they're usually things that we're gonna toss anyway, and parents can donate. Other teachers can bring it in and you know, build up your supply for when you want to do these activities with children. But look how creative they got with those dinosaurs. Another book we'd like to offer for linking concepts is by Amy Krauss Rosenthal. And it's a funny little story because little P has a lot of things that he likes to do. And so the children get to see all of these wonderful things that little P does, except he does not like to eat candy for dinner each night. And he struggles because he'd rather have his favorite dessert, spinach. So this book is a silly book, but it can be linked across several different activities such as art, math, science, fine motor, and gross motor. We have some pictures to show you some of those wonderful activities. So here we have the children exploring the pea pods. They can examine them using magnifying glasses. They can cut them with, you know, safety scissors. They can pull out the peas with their little tweezers, and they can also weigh using the scale. Other activities that can link across other activities that can be linked, concepts across the activities is using your balance scale with the peas to see how many peas you have to put for it to shift. They can create their own peas out of Play-Doh. A gross motor activity is kind of like a little hopscotch activity where they can roll the peas and they have to jump to where the pea stopped. And of course, they can always make their pea out of in their art with different color green paints. They can even make the different color green paint by mixing regular green paint with other colors to see if they lighten it, they darken it. So many ways to link the concepts across all of the activities with little P.
And the last book that we would like to share with you is one of our favorite books, The Very Hungry Caterpillar by Eric Carle. So we know you all know this story, but this story follows a ravenous caterpillar's path as he eats his way through different foods and the days of the week until he is really fat and has a stomach ache. Full at last, he made a cocoon around himself and went to sleep to wake up a few weeks later. And no doubt you know what happens next. Kids love butterfly metamorphosis stories, and this popular favorite teaches counting and the days of the week too. So this book can be linked across not only different activities, but weeks as well. So you can have the children explore the life cycle of the caterpillar. You can have a life cycle chart, and you can also, that's store-bought, or you can make one, or you can print out pictures off of the internet, and you can have the little figurines for each stage of the life cycle: the egg, the chrysalis, the caterpillar, and also the butterfly. And of course, you can order caterpillars. And this is great because the children get to see the life cycle happen week by week. And this usually takes 2 to 3 weeks for those caterpillars to turn into a butterfly. And the children can document each stage of metamorphosis. So they can sit there and they can draw the caterpillar and they can observe. They can use the magnifying glasses to look at their caterpillars grow and change, and then draw the chrysalis, and finally draw the butterfly. And one thing that happened one year, and it never happens again, I was reading the book From Caterpillar to Butterfly, and just as I was reading the part in the book where the butterfly was coming out of the chrysalis, it actually happened in the classroom. So one of the children noticed and said, Miss Tiffany, look, the butterfly's coming out of the cocoon. And of course we stopped reading because that's a teachable moment, and everyone gathered around and watched as it happened. We got to see 3 of the butterflies come out of their chrysalis. And of course it never happens again, just that one year, but what a great way for children to actually see it happen. So this is a great way to not only introduce these teachable moments to children, but to teach them about the life cycle and to really let them engage in the story and relevant things that happen in their lives. And of course, you can display their drawings of each of those stages in the life cycle. And then we do have a handout for you. This is included in those handouts that we have. Once again, we have 5 handouts. So it's a creeping, crawling caterpillar game where the players are going to hold hands and stand far apart in a circle. There's 5 or more players, and you want to make sure that there's large spaces between their arms, and these spaces will be the places that the caterpillar is going to crawl through. One person's going to be the caterpillar, and he or she is going to wave in and out of the spaces in the food that's created by the other player's arms. And we would like to share a quote with you. Before they read words, children are reading pictures, by David Wisner. So that's why it's so important to introduce the love of reading in children and let them really explore and engage with those books. So these are the references that we used. Once again, you can take a picture of them. They're really great resources that you can use to help facilitate an interactive story time. Once again, with the webinar housekeeping, you can click on the orange rectangle with a white arrow pointing right on your panel to extend it. There are 5 handouts. If you click on the handouts triangle on the panel, you will be able to download each of those 5 handouts, which you will have to do separately. You have to click on each handout to download. And your certificate will be emailed to you within 24 hours. Please make sure that you complete the post-test of 3 questions and the training evaluation after the webinar. So in total, there will be 8 questions, 3 of the post-test and 5 of the evaluation questions. Our contact information, once again, my name is Tiffany Bernard. My email address is tbernard@elcbroward.org. My co-presenter, Amy Hamway, her email address is ahamway@elcbroward.org. And if you have any questions at all, please feel free to email us. We would like to share another quote with you. Children want the same things we want: to laugh, to be challenged, to be entertained, and to be delighted. And of course, that is by our wonderful Dr. Seuss. So we would like to thank you for attending this training and spending your Thursday afternoon with us. We hope that you found some useful tips and different ways that you can make storytime fun and interactive for your children. Nice going, Rabbit. I couldn't have done it without you.
Likewise, Duck. Thank you all for being with us this afternoon, and we hope that you enjoyed the webinar and took back some great information.
We hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you for spending your Thursday with us.